Good morning, everybody. How is everybody doing today? It's so good to see all of you guys. Hey, Wiggles. She beat Judy today. Good morning, Judy. What trivia do you have for us today? The first trial ended in a hung jury when two jurors thought she should be convicted of manslaughter instead of murder, believing that the killings weren't premeditated. Okay, that makes a little bit of sense. If they thought she was going there to kill herself in front of them, I can see how they might think that she was planning to go there to kill herself and then changed her mind and then shot them. I can see that, but I don't think that's what happened. Carrie Wells was with the San Diego DA's office until January 2003 when she was appointed to the Superior Court. Wells was presiding judge of the Superior Court's Appellate Division. She retired in 2018. Oh, that's cool. Hey, Marty. Hey, Jennifer. Good morning. All my friends are here. Okay, we are done with Betty's testimony. Now we are going. Oh, I forgot his name. Hang on. Dr. Dunn. No, let me start over. Dr. Don Lusterman. I have no idea what kind of doctor he is.
Don David Lusterman, last name Lusterman.
Thank you.
Sir, what is your occupation?
I'm a psychologist.
And any state as a psychologist?
I'm licensed in the state of New York.
And what type of practice are you engaged in?
And family.
And where's your practice located?
Baldwin, New York.
And where in New York is that?
That's on Long Island, about 30 miles from New York City.
And what is your primary work in your practice?
My primary work is treating families and couples.
What kind of education have you had to be engaged in this practice?
I hold a doctorate in clinical psychology, and I have had postgraduate training at Roosevelt Hospital in New York City in their family program.
Are you recognized by any of the boards of psychology?
Yes, the American Board of Professional Psychology. I hold the diplomate in family psychology from the American Board of Professional Psychology. I also hold the diplomates in marriage and family and marriage sexual therapy from the American Board of Family Psychology.
And what does that mean when you're a diplomate?
That means that I have been, my abilities and training have been examined by each of these diplomating boards.
Okay. And are the boards nationwide boards?
Yes, they are.
Okay. And have you had any training, any type of teaching institute?
Yes, I have taught. I taught from 1973 until, no, excuse me, from the 60s until 1980 at Hofstra University.
And have you had training in any other hospitals?
I trained at the Veterans Hospital in Brooklyn, in the Bronx, New York, and in Brooklyn, New York, and at Roosevelt Hospital.
Okay, and have you had any, are you a fellow in any of the associations?
Yes, I am a fellow in the American Psychological Association, and I am a fellow in the American American Association for Marriage and Family Therapy.
And what does that mean?
That means that for those professors.
Okay. And the boards that you've been that you are a member of, do you do anything in regards to researching on articles in those fields?
I am on the board of two journals, the American Journal of the Journal of Family Psychology and the American Journal of Family Therapy. And in the course of my work for each of these editorial boards, I review articles.
Okay. And have you written articles in those fields?
Yes, I have.
Okay. And is that a few, many?
I have a bibliography of somewhat over 2 pages, including chapters in a number of books, a book, and many professional articles.
Okay. Have you been involved in any word counseling?
Yes, I established the program in family counseling at Hofstra University in 1973. And when I left that, I left as an adjunct full professor. Now,
have you written any articles in the area of infidelity and its impact on people?
Yes, in May-June issue of the Family Networker, I wrote an article specifically on infidelity, called Treating the Crisis of Marital Infidelity.
And is that an area of expertise that you deal with within family counseling?
Yes, it is.
Do you, and in your private practice, is this an area where you have expertise or get referrals from other people or other professionals?
Yes, indeed.
Can you define for us what infidelity is?
Yes. I would say that infidelity is the situation that occurs when one partner continues to live in a contract of monogamy and fidelity, while the other partner violates that contract.
And what do you mean by the contract of fidelity and monogamy?
In most religions, certainly in the Judeo-Christian tradition, the underlying contract of marriage is that the people will be faithful to one another, respect one another, and hold one another in honor.
Okay. And
Did he explain fidelity? He didn't explain
what do you
nothing.
normally see when people are acting under that contract?
He asked him to explain fidelity and monogamy. He didn't explain it. He just said what a wedding vow was. He didn't answer the question. Objection non-responsive.
Under this marital contract?
Under marital contract of fidelity?
Yes.
Yes, I see people who respect and honor one another.
And is there a position of trust that they have with each other?
That's the basis of the contract, is trust.
Okay. Now, does this contract of trust, does it have any ramifications in the area of vulnerability towards either party?
Yes, when you trust someone, the more trusting you become, the more vulnerable you become if that trust is violated. Because the relationship is so based in that understanding of trust. So with that, you leave yourself open.
Okay. And when you have a relationship that comes from marriage and you have an affair or something that interferes with that relationship, does it have an effect on the various parties in the marriage?
Yes. To explain that, I would need to explain a little bit about the terminology that I use when I teach about marriage and family.
Okay, could you go ahead and tell us what those terms are and what they mean?
The terms that I use to describe the people who are directly involved in an infidelity are the infidel, that is to say the person who violates trust, the victim, that is to say the person whose trust is violated, and the affairee, for the person with whom the infidel is having an affair.
Okay. And is this effect on the affair, does it have just the effect on the people in the affair or other people too?
In the book that I'm working on, I describe the impact of infidelity on the immediate three people involved, their families, their parents, their children, friends. Once infidelity becomes known, its impact on family is enormous. In fact, on the whole...
Excuse me, Doctor.
I'm sorry.
Is the doctor opining further in that area?
Well, sustain. Just ask another question, Mr. Rimmer.
When you have a relationship where there is an affair or infidelity, is there a difference in how people react when the affair is a secret one rather than an open one?
By definition, an infidelity is a secret affair.
So I take it that when you have an affair that's not secret, it does not have the same effect?
The name that's...
Sustained.
Was there a difference in the effects of an affair that's secret or not secret?
When an affair is not secret, the name that most experts use for it is an arrangement. That is, say, an understanding between two people that they will not follow the normal rules of monogamy and fidelity. Where the rules are violated, and there isn't an infidelity as most of us define it, that means by nature that it begins as a secret act, which is sometimes subsequently discovered.
Okay. When you have someone where there's an affair where it's secret infidelity, does that affect the mental condition of the one who you term the victim?
Yes.
Okay. And what is that effect?
There are stages in its effects. The stage that I use to describe the first effect is what is called cold rage. During a period of cold rage, usually the victim has not yet let into her consciousness, or his, if the victim happens to be a male, the fact of what is happening. And so they are getting information that would suggest to most people that something is happening to the quality of the marriage, but they are not tuned to that. During that phase, people may ask them, don't you think something is happening? They may have information that one would expect them to react to, like changes in habit, new schedules on the part of the infidel, frequent lateness, etc. But the fact is, during that period, the victim has still permitted that into consciousness. During that time, generally speaking, the victim's personality change, becoming irritable, short. In some way, she is evidencing what is happening, but what she is not letting into her awareness. The second stage is called hot rage. Hot rage comes after the discovery of infidelity. During the hot rage stage, there is an enormous release of all of the angry energy that has been stored during...
I find it funny that they've boiled this down to a science. There is nothing scientific about a man cheating on his wife and the results. Is this ridiculous to anybody else?
In the cold rage phase, where the person has been in denial. So the hot rage phase usually is triggered by the discovery of the infidelity and the reaction to that.
Okay. Are there alternate phases in the cold phase, in the cold rage?
Once the cold rage, during the cold rage itself, yes. Sometimes the person may vary between trying very, very hard to satisfy the mate because they don't know what is happening and they feel very insecure, although they have not admitted to themselves or it has not become evident that an affair is going on. Sometimes they're very irritable, very angry, although they don't know why.
Now, does when you see affairs, is there some kind of behavior you usually see on behalf, that you can see on behalf of the infidel that has an effect on the mental condition of the victim?
Yes.
And what's that?
The infidel must cover his tracks. It's a hidden thing. Because it's a hidden thing, it involves lies. Those lies have to be denied. So the victim who's struggling to come to grips with what is happening and to understand what is happening is being told that nothing is happening. And that is extremely unsettling to the person because they struggle to believe that, even though friends, others may be telling them that they shouldn't be believing it.
And is there any things that you see as to, is there sometimes confrontation between the victims and the infidels about the affair?
We're talking about during the cold rage phase before
Yes.
the actual, yes, frequently. The victim will say, is anything happening? Tell me if something is wrong. What is going on? And the infidel will say, nothing is going on. You don't know what you're talking about. They will deny it.
Okay. Does the effect or the kind of process of them telling somebody that they're unsettled or that while they're telling them about denying the affair, does it have different effects depending on whether the person has some traditional marriage beliefs versus somebody who doesn't?
Now let's never use the lead and overrule. Go ahead.
Would you mind repeating the question?
Okay. Does the effect of this process of telling somebody that they're mentally unsettled or they're crazy, does that have any different effects depending on whether the person has some traditional marriage beliefs versus somebody who doesn't?
Generally speaking, the more intensely committed a person is to the marriage, which at times is a matter of religious background, religious convictions, the more unsettled the person is during this phase as they are seeking confirmation that the contract of monogamy and fidelity is still in effect, being told that it is, but becoming more and more frightened and uncomfortable because they're getting other sensory information that suggests maybe it isn't. But they're still being told that there is no cause for alarm, no cause for worry. It's very unsettling and confusing to the victim.
Okay, when we're talking about traditional marriages, what type of groups are you talking about?
I would say marriages that for example, people who come from a tradition of Orthodox Christian.
She's not dead. I'm sorry, but I would say she was a victim if he wasn't dead. But he's dead. Before he got dead, yeah, she was a victim. But once she went crazy enough to make him dead, now she's not a victim anymore. Don't call her a victim. She's not a victim. That's what she wants everybody to think. She wants everybody to think that Dan drove her to do what she did. No. That's not what happened.
Christianity, Orthodox Judaism, people who are well schooled in a particular religious tradition.
Now this process of vulnerability where the person wants to believe the partner what is going on and is willing to believe them even in the face of other signs, is anything else, do you see other things happening?
The person is pressing away an awareness that something is wrong. She doesn't want to know what is wrong. She is being told that nothing is wrong, but she's nervous. She's edgy. Because the same person who's telling her that nothing is wrong is also doing things which suggest that something is wrong. So that the denial process is building, and the victim is becoming more and more nervous and more edgy. Later, frequently say, now I understand why I was so irritable and so angry and so different than I'm used to being.
Cold rage, is that a very short period of time, a very long period of time normally? Or
It varies, but generally speaking, cold rage goes on from sometime during the course of the infidelity until the direct discovery of the infidelity. Now, there's another issue here as well. Once an infidelity is admitted, frequently there's still back and forth on it. So the person may move back and forth now between cold rage and hot rage, as she either believes what the infidel is telling her when he subsequently denies what he admitted, or accepts it. If she accepts it, if she fully grasps it, she's explosive because it's like a pressure cooker. The longer those feelings are pressed down, the more explosively they're going to come out when they come out.
Okay. Now, you talked about the area that's undermining the person's stability. Is there a term that's used in the field as to what that is?
The term that I use is the term gaslighting.
Okay. And what is gaslighting?
Gaslighting, it's based on a movie of many, many years ago, a movie I think from the late 30s or early 40s, in which a man marries a woman essentially for the purpose of cheating her, hurting her, not through infidelity. She has something that he wants. And he fools her into believing that he loves her and continues to love her.
Excuse me, doctor, but Your Honor, I don't see whether that has anything to do with this doctor's form of expertise.
He's explaining the term gaslighting, but I don't see the relevance of that term based on his explanation so far, Mr. Early.
Dude,
Yeah, go ahead.
that's where
The
we
reason
get
I
the
use
term
the term
gaslighting from the movie. Because that's where we get the term gaslighting from. In the movie, there were gas lamps. He would turn it down so it would be dark, and she would say, "It's dark in here. Someone's been messing with the gas lights," and he would be like, "No, I haven't touched the gas lights. It's not dark in here." That is why we get the term gaslighting from that movie. He gaslighted her because he turned the gas lights down. And it's very relevant. That's where we get the term from that movie. Shut up.
It was brought to me by a number of victims who used the term.
Relevant.
And so I began to try to understand what it was. And what it really refers to is the impact of the lying on the victim, that the victim continues to believe the lie and thus begins to feel undermined in her very being.
Okay.
That's thus the term gaslight.
Now, is there a relationship that you find in the length of a marriage and or the length of this process that you call gaslighting on the victim of the affair?
The longer the denial process goes on, that is to say, the longer the infidelity goes on and is denied, and the victim accepts that denial, the stronger the feelings that are going to erupt when she hits hot rage are going to be.
Okay. Now, how does the victim of the affair, how do they feel towards themselves as this process is going on?
There's an enormous loss of self-esteem. The person really begins to doubt everything about her life. She doubts herself. She can doubt every aspect of her being. She begins to wonder what she's doing that's wrong, even though she is still being told that nothing has happened. But she's getting waves that suggest to her that something is happening. And she searches herself. She becomes really distraught during this period.
Okay. Now, when we talk about the lies that the people that you've talked about, the infidel telling, what are you talking about?
I'm talking about
No objection. I think he's already covered this area exclusively, Your Honor.
Sustained. Asked and answered.
Does anything happen in regards, are these lies that have an effect immediately, or they can have an effect at other times too?
I think that the most dramatic thing is that often the lies are accepted as truths. That's part of the vulnerability. When the person becomes aware that indeed they were lies, she is ready to tear herself apart. She says, how could I have been such a fool? How could I have believed this? And that's the vulnerability. Because now the shield that she's had, that the marriage was still going on, is really being ripped apart.
Okay. And can these lies have effect, do they have effect just at that time, or can they have an effect at a later time also?
What I find is that there is a long period of review that goes on after the discovery, where the victim now begins to look for every possible bit of evidence to restore her sense of who she is. She's lost a belief in herself, and now she needs to prove to herself that she's okay, that she is seeing things clearly. And so there is often a frenzied search of her partner's possessions or diaries or checkbooks or any sort of data she can get hold of that restores her own sense of what has happened to her.
Okay. Now, as something that a person believed, as a lie comes forward, will it have an effect to them at the time they discovered, even if the lie was told sometime
Oh,
earlier?
yeah, absolutely.
And how
It's almost as if it were happening again, all over.
So if somebody is told a lie at one point in 2 years...
Objection, lady.
Sustained.
Can you explain that in the terms of what happens when someone is told something, a lie, and maybe discover it 2 years later?
Yes. They feel the rage that they felt in the original instance. And they once again say to themselves, how could I have accepted this? What's wrong with me? And of course, there's rage at the person for having perpetrated the lie.
Does the, as you say, this person loses their self-esteem and their anchors,
Objection to counsel testifying.
No, just focus on him, overruled, go ahead.
does this affect the way they deal with other things such as their work, their relationship with their children, family, neighbors?
Yes, they are devastated.
Okay.
Oh.
Does it affect the victim's ability to trust themselves as far as whether they can be a good worker or a good mother?
It is often pervasive. People sometimes cannot work any longer. They go through a period where they miss days of work, where they can't parent effectively.
Now, you say that about this area of hot rage when there's, how does that process work, hot rage?
During the
Ask and answer.
Overruled, you can answer that.
during the period of hot rage, to the degree that the person's beliefs have been shored up falsely by the infidel who keeps on denying that something is happening, to that degree they explode later. And the person will threaten, the person will scream at the other person, will generally act in ways that are not part of that person's normal being. For example, a woman who generally speaking is very quiet and has a good demeanor, is known to have a good demeanor, may suddenly in the office, even though we're now being the infidelity and are working on some kind of a return to a relationship, something gets triggered. The man says something that reminds her of something, and sometimes the session will break up wildly towards the end of the session, even though we're working on getting the couple back together, because the person, the infidel, has said something that reminds her.
I think we're not.
Well, sustained. Just ask me another question, Mr. Early. He's non-responsive.
How do you find the victims of these affairs? How do they deal with this rage? Is it some,
Question asked and answered.
Overruled, you can answer that.
They deal with this rage in a variety of ways. Sometimes they directly express the rage to the infidel, to the affairee, talking to friends, parents, children. Sometimes they take it in and become very, very depressed. Sometimes they do both. But they cannot but be affected by what has happened to them.
is there a time during this phase where the victim will blame themselves for the problems?
Yes.
And why is that?
They blame themselves because they think, how could they have trusted so much? How could they have been such fools? It's a word that you often hear from the victim during this phase. Sometimes they even become suicidal and say, I've made such a mess by believing this. I stake my life on this. What life do I have?
Do they,
May I say another word on that?
No question.
I'm sorry. It is not
Go ahead, you can
Yes,
answer.
go ahead.
it is not infrequent during that phase for the person to be so seriously depressed that the person is at least referred for the possibility of antidepressant medication. They can't sleep, they can't eat, they pace, they're really beside themselves.
okay, now the feelings that they have about this rage, is this something that people can just turn on and off?
It's been my experience that even for me as an experienced therapist dealing with infidelity, I don't know when it's going to pop up during a session. It can happen with such suddenness and such ferocity.
Is there, now, is there a process where people find that they can, where they can deal with the infidelity or this rage or find some relief from it?
Yes.
And how is that?
If the infidel can approach the victim and express remorse for the way he has lied to the person, and clear admission of what has happened, that's at least the beginning of a process of a reintegration. The couple can then either be ready to really think rationally about whether the marriage can go on and get beyond this infidelity, or whether the marriage has to end, but it can end in a healthier way than if there is not admission and remorse on the part of the infidel. In other words, it tends to begin to diminish the hot rage.
Do you find that without this remorsefulness or this person admitting at least the problems they caused, that there tends to be a lack of release of this rage or this pressure cooker you talked about?
Yes, indeed.
Okay, and why is that?
Because the person feels no requirement, no recompense. They're still really being told somehow that nothing happened. Once the infidel is able to sit down and say, look, yes, I did this, even though things weren't going on and things were going wrong in the marriage, I didn't have to lie and cheat to you. I didn't have to go outside of the contract. I could have told you that I didn't want to stay in the marriage, and we could have negotiated a divorce. So there's the beginning of an apology to the victim specific to the lie. It's the lying which really causes the problem.
And without that admission as to causing those problems, does that thwart the effort to be able to get the pressure off the pressure cooker?
Yes, because it leaves the person in this state of rage. Leaves the victim in the state of rage.
Is there problems with people who are going through this rage and infidelity when they are brought for help without some admission as to the cause of the rage?
If a person goes to therapy and the therapist is unaware of what has happened, the therapist may make the error of seeing what the patient does as depression or some other form of what's called process mental illness. In other words, an underlying process which has always been there in the person. In fact, what is happening to the person may be reactive to what has happened. In other words, there has been an infidelity, the person is reacting to it, but hasn't yet entered into that phase of hot rage because there hasn't been admission, and therefore a doctor who's unaware of this can mistake that for pathological jealousy or something else.
Okay. And just very shortly, what is the difference between pathological jealousy and...
Your Honor, this is in violation of
No, I'm sorry.
agreement between counsel.
No, that's proper. Go ahead.
The difference between pathological jealousy and a rage reaction is that pathological jealousy means that the patient has a history of unfounded jealousy. An example would be someone who every time they go to a party with their mate have always been known to look every time the person talks to someone else or goes out of the room, etc. That would be an example of pathological and probably unfounded jealousy.
Okay.
Whereas what we're describing here is a reactive situation. The person is frightened and hurt and angry. There's a difference between that and pathological jealousy.
Okay. And when someone is brought to, when somebody when we have an affair that's going on and we have this effect on the victim, does it block the process of getting better when they're brought somewhere and told for help it's because they're crazy, rather than dealing with the affair itself?
A person who is reacting to an affair is not by nature necessarily crazy. A person who's reacting to an affair is reacting with hurt, pain, anger, to the feeling of being betrayed. So if that person is judged, and it is in the literature, as being pathologically jealous, I think that hurts the person very deeply.
Have you ever heard the word double bind?
Yes, indeed.
And what does that mean?
A double bind is a situation in which no matter what you do, you are wrong.
Okay. And in terms of someone who is suffering from the effects of an affair and is being brought to a doctor because they said they're crazy, they're the one that's crazy, what effect, what does...
It's complicated. If another person tries...
Another objection.
It's the same.
Does going to seek help on the basis that not dealing with the rage or with the infidelity, but dealing with the effects of the infidelity, saying the person is basically crazy, does that block the person's ability to deal with this rage?
Yes, because the person is being treated by someone who believes that the rage is...
Same objection, Your Honor.
Overruled and answered.
that the rage is pathological. In other words, it's really a misdiagnosis.
The area of infidelity and its effects, is that a new area, a long-established area of psychology, a new area?
It's a fairly recent area.
And why is that?
I think because there was a confusion between infidelity and the impact of infidelity on the victim and jealousy.
If I may have 1 minute, Your Honor.
Certainly.
If you have to pay a therapist to tell you that you're mad, that your husband cheated on you, that you have been conned out of some money.
When you have these feelings of despair and rage from the breaking of trust, is this something, and it's not based in pathology that the person is crazy, but it's something that people normally feel. How do they feel about that process normally?
I'm not understanding your question.
Is, in relating it like to a book, is there a feeling that people, or what you can do when people are going through this process? It's not based on pathology, but based on the rage. Do you understand the question
No,
at
I
all?
don't.
Okay. Do if there is a denial of the infidel's involvement in the person's unsettling, does this interfere with the person's ability to deal with the rage?
Objection.
Sustained.
Is it possible for these people to deal with these feelings apart from the infidel?
It's very, very difficult because over a certainty, they're in a kind of a search mode. Can I describe the patient?
Go ahead.
One patient described the feeling as she began to be in this period between cold rage and discovery. She said it's like a book with a binding, a nice old book. If you kind of open the binding and it breaks, the pages start falling out. And she said that's what her life feels like. That all the pages are falling out. So she feels very scattered, confused, unable to pull herself together. The truth helps to begin that process of healing.
Okay. And when the people are totally separate, let's say they're separate from each other, the infidel and the victim, can the person start dealing with that rage?
It's hard. Married, has believed that a marriage was going on. She's confused. What happened? At least tell me what was going on.
I just keep thinking about Ahmed. Shut up. I kill you.
Going on. I don't understand. Tell me. What went wrong?
Now, does some contact from whatever means between the victim and the infidel, does it keep it so that that pressure cooker remains there if there is no resolution of that or admission?
Objection, asked and answered. Ready.
Sustained on the first grounds.
If the will the victim, if there has not been a healing process or admission by the infidel as to this breaking of this trust, is there common to see statements that reflect despair, bitterness, anything such as that?
Asked and answered, Your Honor.
Overruled. The answer stands.
Okay, and what kind of things are you talking about?
There's no objection, Your Honor.
Overruled. You can explain it. Go ahead.
Things I'm talking about are the feeling on the victim's part that her life is falling apart. She doesn't trust herself. She's not sure about her own judgment. And at the same time, she is enraged. So she's torn. She's going both ways. Part of her is saying, I don't know what's wrong with me. Part of her is saying, I am just so angry.
When you have a prior relationship where a person in the relationship has been making all the prior decisions, does that affect how the amount of rage or the feelingness of hopelessness after an untreated affair?
Objection, simply hypothetical.
Well, sustained.
Okay. Can the positions of the party in the relationship affect how the person relates or how they deal with an affair, untreated affair?
Yes. To the degree that there's a power disparity, that say one person has power and the other has less power, and that frequently is the case where there's an infidelity. The victim now feels disempowered in almost every part of her life.
I thought I
She feels
misheard
threatened.
that.
She doesn't know what's going to happen to
Michelle.
herself.
I really
And
thought I misheard
that increases a sense of chaos, despair, rage.
Do people sometimes move on from these process?
Oh, yes.
Okay, and what is it usually that brings that on?
Usually, it is some process of healing, at best, between the two people. And usually, the preceding necessity is for admission and remorse. And again, I'll specify, remorse about the lying. Because the lying has removed from the person a sense of trust in the world as she understands it.
Okay, and is there some time where there is a need for is there some time that this healing process can go on without that? In other words, if the people end up being separated by long distances, there can be a closure in this.
Eventually, yeah.
Okay. If there is still contact between the people of any kind, does that thwart the closure without the admission?
If there's no admission, yes, it thwarts the closure because it keeps on raising the old question and all of the old rage.
And can that closure come from other means other than admission?
Objection asked.
Sustained.
Does at any time, do you see that other people sometimes get involved in this process of either the crazy making or the inability to address the affair?
Objection vague and erroneous exposed.
Sustained.
Okay, I have no further questions.
How long going to be on cross, Mr. Burkoff?
Half an hour.
Or less? You folks going to keep going?
I like to keep going.
Well, the jurors get a vote. All right, keep going? Go ahead.
Good afternoon, Doctor.
Good afternoon.
Now, you've been flown out by the defense from New York to testify in this
Yes.
case, for your opinion, essentially?
Yes.
Okay. Did you ever talk to the defendant in this case?
No, I have not.
At any time?
No.
Did you observe the defendant testify in this case, today, yesterday, days before?
I saw a bit on TV last night.
What about in the first trial?
No, absolutely no knowledge.
And your testimony is not based on anything you saw in court, I
No.
take it? Did you review any of the divorce file material?
No, I did not.
You know there was a divorce in this case, right?
Yes, I'm aware of it.
Did you review the divorce trial transcript?
No.
Did you review the police reports in this case?
No.
Did you review the prosecution's witness interview reports?
No.
Did you review the defense attorney's interview reports?
No.
Did you review any of the audio tapes that have been entered into evidence here, or haven't been entered into evidence here?
The only thing is a little snippet that was on that TV program on 2020.
And I assume that has nothing to do with your opinion here?
No, because my opinion is based on the literature. I'm
Okay.
really reporting on my clinical experience, not on this case.
So you've talked to nobody that knew the defendant before she killed Dan and Linda Broderick, is that
No.
fair? And you've talked to nobody who knew Dan Broderick or Linda Broderick before they were
No.
killed? So what you're saying has nothing to do with the facts in this case, is that correct?
That's correct.
Because you know nothing about the facts. Would you agree, though, sir, that it might be wiser to know something about the facts before you come and give an expert opinion in this case?
No, because I'm testifying about a syndrome, really, the syndrome of infidelity and its effects.
Haven't you testified that the way people react to affairs varies from couple to couple?
Yes, that's correct.
And it would be helpful, wouldn't it not? Wouldn't it to know what happened in this particular case?
I'm testifying about a clinical area.
Oh, I understand that, but would it be helpful to know what happened in this case?
Your Honor, objection. It's argumentative.
Sustained.
But you don't feel it would be helpful, is that fair to say?
I'm testifying on an area of expertise,
But not, having nothing to do with the facts in this case, is that correct?
having to do with an expert knowledge of infidelity and its effects upon people.
Totally unrelated to this particular case, is that correct?
Objection.
It's argumentative. Sustained.
I'll withdraw, Your Honor. Now, Dr. Lusserman, when you talk about the concept of hot rage and cold rage and the pressure cooker, aren't you really saying that when one spouse finds out that the other spouse may be having an affair, that first spouse gets very angry?
I don't think it's nearly that simple.
But do they get angry?
Certainly at that point they become angry.
Couldn't they also become jealous?
I have not found, and I've interviewed thousands of hours on this, and I've conferred with others, I have not found that jealousy is the primary issue. The primary issue is the feeling of betrayal.
Are you telling us, doctor, that if one spouse suspects the other spouse of having an affair or actually knows of the affair's existence, that first spouse may not be jealous?
I'm saying that that what I find is that that is not the primary factor, and that's not what you have to address clinically. In fact, addressing it only confuses the matter.
I don't think that's my question, doctor. My question is, can they feel jealousy when they discover an affair on the part of their spouse?
Yeah.
She was jealous, but not because of love. She was jealous because Linda had her life. She felt like Linda had her life. That was the jealousy. It had nothing to do with love. And yeah, Betty's case is different because Betty is crazy.
Jealousy is there, but jealousy is not the primary thing that's happening. What's happening is that they've gone for a long period of time believing in the contract of fidelity.
I think you're
monogamy.
answering my question. Thank you. Thank you. Now, would it be correct to state that when one spouse believes the other spouse has been unfaithful and suspects the affair, and then confronts the second spouse about that, and the second spouse says, no, the affair is not happening, denies the affair for one reason or another, that would make the first spouse even angrier, isn't that correct?
It's been my experience that during the time in which the infidel is denying, that generally speaking, that the victim is confused.
Well,
She's
yes.
just not sure. She does not want to believe that indeed an affair is going on.
Okay, but let's say the victim, as you say, finds out that there was an affair and confronts the spouse with the evidence, and the spouse says, no, the affair is not happening. Is that going to make the first spouse even angrier?
Subsequently, frequently during the course of it, the victim is simply confused and doesn't know what to make of it.
Well, yes, but there is a point, though, right? When they find out about the affair, they become very angry. Is that fair to say?
When they find out about the affair,
Okay.
that's the beginning of hot rage.
Okay. And you're telling us that this hot rage can be carried over for a number of years, isn't that
Oh,
correct?
yes.
1, 2, 3, 4 years?
Can be carried for a long period of time.
5, 6, 7 years?
Can be carried for a long period of time.
6, 7, 8 years?
Can be carried for a long period of time.
8 years?
Can be carried for a long period of time.
Well, can it be carried for 8 years?
I have treated cases that have never been fully resolved, where well into a second marriage, the second marriage falls apart because the issue in the first marriage was never resolved. Yes.
So your answer to that is yes?
Yes.
Can be carried for 8 years. And even after the couple is separated, you're telling us, and even remarried, that rage can still be there in the first
If the
spouse.
conditions that I described were never attended to, yes. That is to say, if there was never admission and remorse.
Right. And it's your position that the only way that the spouse can get over the affair, the afflicted spouse, the person that you call the victim, can get over the affair is if the second spouse admits it and is very remorseful. Is that correct?
It is the better way.
Is it the only way?
No.
Okay.
Sometimes years of therapy can help a person through that.
Is there a way they can get over the affair without going through years of therapy and without having remorse on the spouse's part?
They have to undergo some remarkable personal experience of reorganization because they really feel shattered. It's a shattering experience.
Anger and rage is something that you treat in your practice, isn't it, doctor?
This is correct.
And do you ever have people in your practice that refuse to come to terms with their anger and rage and don't wish to get rid of it?
I have not had anybody who doesn't wish to get rid of it, but I've had people who have a great deal of trouble getting rid of it.
You've never heard of the notion of cherished anger or cherished rage?
No, I'm not familiar with that notion.
Okay. But it's correct that if somebody doesn't want to put aside their rage.
I've only been married once, and I'm very much in love with my husband, but and Travis has been married before, and he can't stand his ex-wife. I'm having trouble with, even after they've remarried, they still feel that jealousy? What? Travis has no jealousy. He hates her because of what she did to him. It's not jealousy. It's just pure hatred at the betrayal because she cheated on him. Like, he was jealous at the time, but not like he dealt with it and got over it, and he still hates her, yes. The hate is still there. But like, I don't understand that. Does anybody understand that? Is that a thing? Like, can you really fall in love with somebody else, get married, move on, and then like still have this jealousy that you like can't get over about your ex cheating on you? But once you get remarried, isn't if you fall in love again and get married, shouldn't that, like, I mean, I don't know. I don't get it. The hate, yeah, I get it. Travis hates her, but he's not going to let that ruin his life. Like, he's happy now with me. He's not going to, like, keep fighting with her and let that ruin his life. You know? Like, I don't get it.
A therapist can't help them. Is that fair to say?
What I teach on the basis of clinical research is that, in fact, if you can help the person be accepted, validated in their rage, rather than attempting to press the rage down, that in that case, they begin to work through the rage. It's the pressing away of the rage which increases the rage. That's the pressure cooker effect that I was talking about. So a therapist who mistakenly attempts to simply stop the rage as if the rage were irrational increases the rage.
But my question, doctor, was if somebody does not want to put aside their rage, you can't make them do that, can you, as a therapist?
It has not been my finding that people in this situation don't want to put aside their rage. They want closure because they feel so uncomfortable with their rage.
So you've never had a person that doesn't want to hold on to the rage, is that correct?
Only when there was a premorbid history about that. That's the only time that I see that. In other words, by premorbid, let me explain what I mean by premorbid history.
You mean when there's somebody, if they have something else wrong with them in terms of personality?
If they have a long previous history of being that way, then they will continue being that way.
Okay.
But what I find in infidelity is frequently there is no premorbid history.
Well,
What goes wrong begins to create this rage, and the person feels the rage is very foreign to them. They want to get rid of it. They don't want the rage.
Doctor, you don't know what there was or was not in Mrs. Broderick's premarital history of
This is correct.
premorbidity, as you put it. Okay. So what you're saying you can't address specifically to Mrs. Broderick?
No, I cannot.
Okay. Now, haven't you stated, I don't know if you did it this time, but the last time you testified here, you stated that that marital infidelity is a symptom rather than the cause of a deteriorating or bad marriage. Would that be fair
That
to
is
say?
correct.
And it's the pre-existing problems in the marriage that cause the marital infidelity or precipitate them as precipitated as
No, I think
factors.
that's an oversimplification, because they don't necessarily have to precipitate infidelity. What I do find is that those premorbid symptoms, specifically poor problem solving and poor self-disclosure, do precede an infidelity, but they can precede other kinds of marital problems too, not necessarily resulting in an infidelity.
But the problems of the marriage, doctor, are the precipitating factors in an infidelity. Isn't that correct?
Yes,
In fact, that's what you testified last time,
that is
wasn't it?
correct.
And these problems that pre-existed the affair, that caused the affair, don't necessarily have to be the cause or the fault of the spouse that ends up having the affair. Isn't that fair to say?
No, we're talking about a couple that has poor self-disclosure. They don't know how to talk to each other about what they are feeling and experiencing, and because of that, as problems arise, they find it difficult to talk about problems that arise, and they tend to go underground.
So are you saying, yes, that it doesn't have to be a problem caused by the spouse that ultimately has the affair that causes the bad marriage and precipitates the affair?
The problem itself is the problem of poor self-disclosure leading to poor problem solving. That doesn't necessarily mean that poor problem solving and poor self-disclosure will result in an affair. An affair is a decision a person makes to conduct an affair. A person could ask for a divorce. A person could say we need some marital therapy to talk about the problem we're having. A lot of things could happen.
My question to you, though, doctor, is let's say there's a marriage, and at some point one of the spouses, spouse A, has an affair.
Yes.
And we must assume, based on what you're saying, that there must be some problems that exist in that marriage before spouse A goes off and has the affair. Isn't that correct?
There are generally precipitating problems.
Okay. Now, my question to you, though, is...
I have to make one careful statement there, though. There is a personality disorder called Don Juanism. And a Don Juan may not be in that same situation.
Okay.
But if you're talking specifically about marital infidelity as I've defined it, generally speaking, it is preceded by those two things.
Okay. And assuming, again, that the spouse A, the one that goes off and has the affair, assuming that there are these precipitating problems, spouse A doesn't have to be the person who caused the problems.
Problems, generally speaking, are between the members of the couple.
So you think it's the problem of both the spouses in each instance. Is that correct?
Generally speaking, as I said, there is poor problem solving and poor self-disclosure. But they don't necessarily have to eventuate in an affair.
It's correct to
That's a
say
decision.
you don't know what the marital situation was at the Brodericks before the affair took place. Isn't that correct?
That's correct.
And you don't know who was responsible for those problems that pre-existed the affair, do you?
I am not familiar with the Broderick case.
So the answer to that is no, you don't know. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And you stated that sometimes as you termed it, the victim of the affair may act sort of crazy. I think you said something like that.
The victim of the affair is really in a devastated state when she discovers the lying, the cheating, the complete misrepresentation of what is going on in the marriage, yes.
Isn't it true that could be caused by the anger and the hate? Isn't that correct?
What I have found is that it is caused by the devastating feeling that you have gone on believing that whatever else is happening, the marriage contract of monogamy and infidelity is correct, is ongoing, and suddenly you discover that it isn't. And at that point, the person is devastated and has a whole range of emotions.
Doctor, in your practice, do you try to be non-judgmental when you treat couples that come to you with one or more having engaged in an extramarital affair?
Yes.
And you try to deal with both even-handedly and show compassion and understanding for both the person who has the affair and the person who has not had the affair, is that
Yes.
correct? Do you think calling the spouse that had the affair the infidel or the perpetrator, as you have before, do you think that helps that non-judgmental
Perpetrator is not my term. I mentioned that some people in the literature use the term perpetrator. I prefer the term infidel because it specifically refers to the pain that the infidel directly inflicts on the victim by the act of lying. And I refer to the victim because unless you begin by ratifying that feeling on that person's part, that they indeed have been lied to and that the pain and suffering that they're experiencing is real, I find that you cannot really go on to help people to get better. You have to remember that most of the cases that I see of infidelity result in people coming back together, not splitting up. But it's because I begin by helping the infidel to accept the rage of the victim. And I will say to them, you have to understand,
Okay,
this
Doctor, there's no question pending. Thank you.
Your Honor, he was still explaining his answer.
I think the answer called for a yes or no answer, and
Well, you explained it long enough. Ask him another question.
thank you. So, Doctor, your answer then to my question, it's been a while since I asked it, but the answer to my question is no, you don't believe that's judgmental to call one of the partners in this situation the infidel. That's
no, I think
okay.
it's necessary.
Okay. Now, I remember reading something in the newspaper just recently that somewhere around 50% of all men during the course of their marriage and between 30 and 40% of all women during the course of their marriage have an extramarital affair. Would you say those are fair statistics?
I would refer you to the articles by Fred Humphreys, who's an expert on the demography of infidelity. Those figures clump people who once in their lives have had a brief encounter with another human being all the way up to protracted infidelity, and therefore they are very confusing figures. I don't think they clearly represent. I'm not a demographer, but I've studied Fred's work very carefully, and I would say that that's a misrepresentation. That when you think about protracted, ongoing infidelity, where one person is for a long period of time involved with another during the course of a marriage, that's not a correct figure. It doesn't really describe that, no.
Well, how high do you think it is?
I would say probably at the most 10-20%.
10-20%. So you disagree with those figures?
Yes, indeed.
Okay.
Excuse me, I wouldn't say I disagree with them. I would say that Fred's figures are the same. Because if you break them down, most of them are not protracted, lengthy infidelity that goes on during the course of a long marriage.
I see. It's safe to say, though, that there are enough people out there having affairs that it keeps you in a fairly steady practice, doesn't it?
This is true.
Okay. How many people have you seen in the last, 10 years that you've been doing this?
Yeah, at least.
How many people have you seen during that time?
Oh, goodness. Hundreds of couples, easily. Thousands of hours of infidelity.
Okay.
Thousands and thousands of hours.
Hundreds of people. Isn't it correct that it's not very uncommon that when one spouse thinks the other spouse is having an affair, and indeed the other spouse is having an affair, the spouse doesn't admit it when they're confronted with it? Isn't that correct to say?
The way I work is that, because that's all I can do. I can only tell you about my cases, sir. I can't tell you about people in general. I haven't treated people in general. I've treated the particular people that you're asking about. I can tell you about them.
But let me
and what I do.
rephrase the question then, if you have problems with it. Sir, out of all the couples that you treated, is it true that a lot of them did not come clean, admit, disclose, however you want to put it, the affair when their spouse confronted them with it?
You're talking about protracted infidelity that I have treated. I do everything in my power to get the person who has done that to talk about it, and I am largely successful. I ask the person point blank, I see the person alone, I ask the person, are you indeed involved with this? I strongly request that the person tell the truth, and I will help them to work through it, and it will only be for the good. And most of those people stay in therapy, go on, do talk about it. Occasionally someone will say, I'm not going to do that, and they leave therapy. But over and over, what I find is that, yes, once people understand that it's the lying that has caused the hurt, particularly if they want the marriage to go on.
I think you maybe answered my question, Doctor. I'm not quite sure. What I would like would be a yes or no answer. Are there a lot of people, when they have an affair, they don't own up to it right away when they get discovered?
I do not treat them. I'm talking about the people that I have treated, and I'm describing what happens in treatment.
And the people you've treated, that's never happened. Is that what you're saying?
The percentage of cases in which a man has refused, once he understands what is at stake in terms of the progress of his relationship with his wife, his children, and so forth, the percentage that refuse to talk about this thing is small.
But isn't it the case that a lot of people who are in affairs don't admit them when they're confronted by their spouses? Or do you feel uncomfortable with that question?
It's, again, if you're asking me what I treat and what happens during treatment, it's a different question. I'm not an expert on what happens all the time. I haven't treated those people.
Well,
I'm not a
doctor-
sociologist of this issue.
Well, doctor, when couples come to you, you take a history from them, don't you?
Yes, indeed.
And you ask them what's happened in the course of their marriage, right?
Mhm.
And we assume that the affair is out on the table at this point because that's why they're coming to you. isn't
No,
that correct?
not necessarily.
But don't a lot of people come to you who have had the affair exposed, and they come to you to seek some sort of counseling, isn't that correct?
Some people come already having been through the stage of discovery, yes.
Okay. And of those people, wouldn't you say that there's a number of them that when their spouse first asked them about the affair, they denied it, isn't that correct?
Usually there's some period of denial, obviously.
Yeah. And that period of denial could go from a short period to a long period, isn't that correct?
That's correct, but
Okay.
the longer it goes on, the more cold rage you're engendering in the victim.
I bet you. Doctor, in all your practice, but 10 years with couples involving infidelity?
Yeah, easily.
Hundreds of couples. Some of these couples, the people who were, as you say, the victim of the affair, they were very angry, weren't they?
Absolutely.
They screamed and they yelled and they vented their anger, didn't they?
Often threaten to kill the other person.
Well, tell
Or
me,
themselves.
Or themselves. Well, tell me, doctor, how many of these people that you treated actually went out and killed the other spouse?
I have not treated anyone who went out and killed the other spouse.
Thank you. I have nothing further.
Broderick?
And you're talking about couples who are in treatment where one side is being honest with the other. Isn't that correct?
Yes.
You're not talking about a couple, someone who is saying, your objection, leading, Your Honor.
Sustained.
I take it that depending if the cold rage and this pressure cooking of denying that you're at fault for causing the person's problems, you have to take that into account. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. And when people come in and deal with the problem as to what they've caused the other person, then you're releasing that pressure cooker.
Yes, trying to.
Okay. Thank you. No further questions.
Recross?
No, Your Honor.
Witness be excused.
Yes, Your Honor.
No.
Thank you very much, Doctor. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll take our evening recess at this time. First of all, on behalf of myself and the lawyers, thank you for agreeing to stay a little longer today. I'd ask that you be extra careful in following the admonition, especially this weekend. It's been my opinion that things such as the answer, or the question rather, that I struck will be the focal point of the news. I don't want you to be contaminated by anything. Please be extra careful not to read, listen, or watch any news about this trial. Also remember not to discuss the case among yourselves nor allow anyone else to discuss it with you, nor form any opinions on it until it's finally submitted to you. And in fairness to the members of the press that are present, I understand why they have to write their articles, because they write articles that sell newspapers. But please be careful not to read anything about this trial. Have a nice weekend. See you Monday, 9 o'clock.
Okay, that's it for today for Betty's trial. Now we are going to go to Florida to Jose Soto Escalera's trial, and this should redirect you, so I will see you guys over there in a few minutes. And as always, we're starting a little bit later so we can zoom through sidebars and breaks, etc. So I will see you guys over there. Thank you for joining us. If you're not going to join us for the live trial in Florida, I will see you again in the morning for more of Betty Broderick's trial at 8 o'clock. Bye, guys.